Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. Today I am joined by Adriana Bucci, a life coach in Toronto who helps her clients get free from toxic relationships, particularly with narcissists, and the emotional and physical pain that come with them. You can find her information at letsgetyourshifttogether.com. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below and we'll get back to you personally. And finally, you can reserve your place in one of my seminars or purchase any of my mind-body guides, also known as the PDFs, at www.crushingdoubt.org. Now, without further ado, here is my conversation with Adriana. Adriana, I want to thank you so much for joining me here. The topic that you work on is really one that is, it's funny to say this, but it's near and dear to my heart. I have some experience with it, as many people do. And I really wanted to first start with how you got into doing this work. How did you come to working with and around narcissists?
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for having me. Super
pleasure.
happy to be here and have this conversation. And I actually don't work with narcissists directly.
Right. I realized as I
Yeah.
said that, I was like, wait, no, she doesn't work with narcissists. You
Right.
work around them.
Yes, I work with the survivors, so the people who have been tormented by them. And yeah, because narcissists, true narcissists are pretty much beyond help. They will not
Yeah.
change. They think they're perfect and all that fun stuff. So
Yep.
it's the people who have been abused by them who are left picking up the pieces. And I got into doing this literally because of chronic pain. I never in my life thought I didn't even know life coaches were a thing, first of all. And I had no clue that I would be one. So basically, I had a bunch of chronic pain, migraines, TMJ dysfunction, carpal tunnel syndrome, neck pain, upper back pain, trigeminal neuralgia, shingles in my mouth. It was a complete nightmare. And that's when I stumbled upon the Mind Body Connection in January 2019, where I discovered the Curable app. I thought it was a joke. I had no idea what the mind body connection was. It sounded like absolute quackery to me, but I was running out of pain control options. So, after 24 hours of being upset that I actually downloaded and paid for this app, I decided to go back to it, do the inner work because I had no other options of pain control. I was still in pain. So whatever, let's try it out. Humor Me app. And of course, within 4 months, I was pain free. The work worked, and that inspired me to become a life coach. And initially I was going to be a chronic pain coach and help other people with their chronic pain. And then, the more I started talking about when emotions get repressed in childhood and saying, like, if you had a narcissistic parent, you totally repressed your emotions in childhood. And this is why you have chronic pain. And this started resonating more and more and more with people. So, I realized, wow, narcissistic people are actually a bit of an epidemic here, and I should probably talk more about this. So I did, and here we are.
So take me through a little bit how you then resolved your pain. Did it relate to, listen, I don't want to pry you. Don't have to share anything on here, but did it relate to having a narcissist in your life? Was that part of what you
Absolutely.
came to see? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. So I was raised by a narcissistic mother, and that was the biggest reason why I was repressing my emotions from childhood. And that created that loop that, emotions equal death. And I'm going to die if I feel anything, because I had to do that to stay safe and survive in my childhood. And, eventually, I had no clue I had a narcissistic mother, of course, until I was breaking up with like maybe the fifth narcissist that I had been with. And that kind of sent me down a Google rabbit hole. And that's when I discovered there was, definitely a pattern with the men I was dating. And I also realized, oh my gosh, my mother's a narcissist too. So, things kind of started to make sense. And I knew that that was absolutely my trauma from childhood. And that's what I had to work on.
Did you find it hard to come to that realization? I mean, I found it hard to recognize in myself, oh my God, this pattern is real. And it's like part of my own experience. What was that like for you?
Oh, it was, my brain exploded when I found everything out, of course. I managed to break the pattern with relationships. So I knew exactly what to look out for and all that, but it was a really crappy realization to come to. But for my mother, I immediately went back into denial. So, I kind of read everything. It all made sense. And then I was like, I don't want to believe this. So I kind of, stuck my head back up my ass and pretended that everything was okay for a year and a half. And then, more and more truths started to come out about my mother. And I actually found documents that supported a lot of the stuff that I was finding out. So I had to sort of accept the truth at that point. So yeah, it sucked.
It really does suck. I can certainly validate that. But the other thing is it sucks in many ways. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to talk about first is, because I think it'll be helpful for my viewers to hear from you about some of the ways it does suck. Like what did you have to change? And how hard was that to do?
Oh man. So I had to move out because that was, she was really trying to sabotage me, and to the point where I literally could not move out. So I actually took on more debt in order to move out of her house because she was, financially sabotaging me and stuff like that. So there was a lot of stuff that had to change. Like every aspect of my life changed. Like it was really just coming to terms with my entire life was a lie.
And that's obviously very hard to take, but then there were also things that needed to change, even just logistically. Absolutely. You had to change where you were living. I also wanted to say, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's really brave that you're out here talking about it. This is something that I like to highlight for people, how scary it is. Yeah. They were scared of narcissists. They were scared of like getting the wrong cereal, let alone coming on a podcast and talking about, this action. So I just want to applaud you.
Oh, thank you.
It's not easy to do what you're doing, and I'm very grateful to you for that.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. But let's talk a little bit about I think a question that's going to be on the minds of a lot of my viewers, and that is, what is a narcissist? How do we define that? What would you say to somebody who had that basic question?
So a narcissist is somebody, so, there's people who will say like they have to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. I completely disagree because they think they're perfect. They think nothing's wrong with them. It's somebody who will never take accountability. They will, purposely go out of their way to, insult you or sabotage you in some way, shape, or form, trying to get a rise out of you. They're really out for narcissistic supply. So what that is your reaction. They just enjoy seeing people running around in circles with their heads spinning and, trying to find different ways to make them happy and all that kind of stuff. So that's a really big indicator on whether you're dealing with a narcissist or not. Like if, you feel like they're trying to make you react, and then if you stop reacting and they get angry, then that that's who you're dealing with. They can be arrogant. They can be super nice though, right? Because they try to hide. They wear a mask and they look like anybody. They look like me and you. There's no specific avatar for a narcissist, you know what I mean? And they can come off as like the most amazing person ever. Like they might seem super charming at first. And of course, they're putting on a fake act. So red flag, if someone's super charming, keep that in mind,
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, I think charming is it's one of the adjectives that I would use to describe narcissists in general. Yeah. Obviously they're not being charming when they're being obnoxious and horrible, but they have charm to them that they utilize.
Totally.
And it's part of a confusing cycle. And actually you've talked about this. I've seen your posts on Instagram, which I think are great. And you've talked about this cycle of, I think it's love bomb,
devalue, discard.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about that? What you tend to see and how you understand it?
Of course. So yeah, it's there's other steps that can be incorporated into that cycle, but the basics of it is love bomb, devalue, discard. So love bomb is when they're being really nice to you. They are complimenting you. They're paying attention to you, praising you, etc. And that's done on purpose. This is a fake person. When they're love bombing you, they are putting on an act in order to hook you in so that you like them. And then you will trust them, because you're not going to trust somebody you don't like. So if they came to you from day one and they were behaving like the piece of shit that they are, you would run for the hills immediately, So they have to put on this fake act and, be all nice and all that in order to hook you in, make you trust them. And then once you reach the level where you do trust them and they see that they have hooked you in and you're not going anywhere, that's when the devaluation will start. So this is where the insults will start to roll in. The snide comments here and there, the contradictions and, everything that you guys had in common at the beginning. All of a sudden, no, I don't have the same favorite movie as you anymore. What are you talking about? I never said that. Stuff like that. And it'll be like the dumbest things sometimes, but they do that on purpose to confuse you, because people who are confused are easier to control. And it's really all designed to have you under their control. And then the discard phase is when they are done with you. Maybe they found a new source of supply and they will just drop you completely and you have absolutely no idea what hit you. Or, they'll discard you for a bit. Maybe they'll give you the silent treatment. Maybe they'll threaten to discard you. They might say, I'm going to kick you out or whatever. And then, the next thing you know, you're back to love bomb and nothing makes any sense. And this cycle, it works for them because they use it to manipulate people.
Yeah, when I was learning about narcissists in grad school, in psychology grad school, I was told that when you would be working with somebody, let's say who was a narcissist, that you would feel very alone inside. It was like you aren't even there. Mm-hmm. But I wish they had taught it in a slightly different way, because that actually is only one of the phases. Yep. I feel like.
Exactly.
And I didn't understand that. I wish I had understood that before. It would have saved me a lot of trouble in many ways.
The textbooks are out of date.
Yeah. So, I also think, this happens a lot of the time. People have an idea about, okay, here is an experience you can have with these people. But if you're not catching the cycle, this is what I like about what you say. You help to make sense of it. I never understood. I was always in a state of confusion. And that's what I wish they had told me is, hey, not only are you going to feel like there's no one there with you at times, other times you'll feel, oh, this is one of the greatest people ever, and you're so connected. And other times you're going to feel completely confused. So I do wonder, are there other signs other than what we're saying now that you would say help you recognize if you're in a relationship with a narcissist? Or, if that's the sum total, that's great. It's still a very good list. But are there other things you look out for?
Like the red flags, if it's a relationship, if they're saying all my exes are crazy, or, you're my soulmate, you're my twin flame, I feel like I've known you forever. And it's like the first day you meet them, stuff like that, where they're just way too charming. They're coming on way too strong and they're, potentially telling you everything you want to hear. That's like massive red flags. And, when you're dealing with a parent or a family member, it'll show up a lot differently for sure, because it's not like you meet your parent for the first time when you're an adult. So it's not like they're going to love bomb you in the same way that, a narcissistic significant other would love bomb you, or even a friend, or even a boss. Like they'll say all this bullshit in the interview about how amazing it is to work there. And then the next thing you know, it's just hell. So they're everywhere. But yeah, the cycle definitely is a thing with narcissistic parents. They might love bomb you in different ways though. Like, oh, I'll help you with the down payment on a house, or, I'll buy you a car. We're going to have a family vacation. We're going to all go to family therapy, whatever you want to hear. If that's what you're hearing, question it. Right. Yeah. And not to that person, because they're going to contradict everything and, probably try and gaslight you, but question it within yourself.
Yeah. I think it's a really good rule of thumb to have it within yourself to say, I'm going to, keep my own counsel on this one. I'm wondering about this. Yeah. Because there is a difference in someone saying, oh, I really like hanging around with you. That's different than you are so special, such a soulmate. It's like, they're sucking you in. So I wanted to ask about one other kind of experience that I've certainly had with narcissists. I'm sure that you have, because you have a lot of good experience with this, but it's about how they keep us afraid. How do they get us to basically agree in some, I'm using that term loosely, but to go along with it? Like, they keep doing these horrible things and we're like, all right, I'll give you another chance. Or, okay, that can't really be you. How do they get us to go along with it? Do you know the answer to that?
Yep. They use your emotions against you, right? And when you are a survivor of narcissistic abuse, you've been repressing your emotions. So you don't even know what your emotions are or what they feel like. So they capitalize on this and they will use everything against you. And usually they choose people very specifically who have empathy, who are decent, kind-hearted people, nice people who would never purposely go out of their way to hurt somebody, and that's who they exploit. So it's not that you were a good target and your personality traits of being a decent person are the problem or a horrible thing or anything like that. It's that this is what they sought out on purpose because you're an awesome person, and they're using that against you. And then they'll use your emotions against you. So they'll use things like guilt, fear, shame in order to control you, because somebody who's in a state of fear is so easy to control because, oh, if you don't want this bad thing to happen that you're so scared about happening, you have to listen to me. So if, you're trying to set a boundary with them and they threaten, oh, well, I'm going to tell all of these people all of the stuff that you said about them, or, I'm going to tell all of these people this weird thing that you did, whether or not it's true is completely irrelevant. They're going to say it anyways, or they're going to try and threaten you that they're going to say that anyway. So then you're so afraid of that consequence that instead of processing the fear when you don't know what to do with your emotions, you end up just repressing the fear and obliging just out of not wanting to feel that fear anymore. So, yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. And I certainly agree. It fits with what I've experienced. It's pretty amazing, though, the level of fear they can get to. I mean, I've had this feeling. It's almost like you're in a horror movie. You're like, oh, my God, if somebody found out about that. And later, I think, so what if somebody knew that? That's, it's like a spell that they cast. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head about how they control us with these fears. They also they tend to be very emotionally intelligent in a certain way. They know exactly what to go for. Yes and no.
Exactly.
Like dumb as rocks in other ways. But they're smart. I'll put in quotes. I don't like to compliment them, but they know the way in.
Exactly.
They know the fear place. So actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. This relates to the work that I do with mind-body suffering, with pain.
Mm-hmm.
The show is obviously called Crushing Doubt. And one of the things that I work with people on is that they can't get better from the pain or the suffering, whatever symptom it is, until they're really, really certain about what it is, where it comes from, how to address it. And I feel like there's overlap between that and how you deal with narcissists. I think it takes a certain amount of certainty. And that's actually what drew me to you. I can't remember where I discovered you on Instagram, but I was just going through and I was like, this woman is very certain about this thing. And it's something that I'm certain about in exactly the same way. I did a video on narcissists and I was like, this is very in line. Mm-hmm. And so that certainty, I think, is so important in getting better. I wondered if you could talk about how you see that in the work you do. Does that kind of ring a bell? Feel like that's right? You got to get that certainty and not have doubts about, is this person a narcissist? Might they be partially quote unquote good? I don't, good and bad. Who knows what we mean by that? But you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. Cause with TMS, you have to be certain that it's TMS. With narcissists, like I feel like certainty is going to be very helpful, but a lot of people are uncertain. And, when you have, at least, in my opinion, when there's someone who's guiding you, who is certain about it and can show you where you're being gaslit and all that kind of stuff, that can definitely help to create that certainty. But I feel like the uncertainty that a lot of survivors have when it comes to, are we sure this person's a narcissist? It all boils down to the repressed emotions. Because if you're unsure and you're still so bamboozled within and there's so much confusion, well, what's causing that confusion? It's going to be some kind of a repressed emotion. And a lot of the times it can be guilt, right? You feel guilty even admitting that this person's a bad person, because what if they're not? What if I'm wrong? Because you're wrong about everything when you're dealing with a narcissist. So exploring those emotions about, you feeling like you're wrong about stuff can help you to actually create that certainty within yourself.
Is that a big part of what you do work on, though, that they can take the certainty maybe from you at first and then incorporate it in them? Because, I mean, that's how I work with symptoms. It starts with me being the certain one, but I tell them all the time, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. It sounds like we have a similar overlap. I was just struck by that.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell my clients all the time, it doesn't matter what I think or what I say. You have to create that certainty within yourself. And the only way to do that is to process those emotions underneath it, which of course there's several steps involved in that. It's easier said than done, but of course they're going to get that guidance from me. But yeah, the certainty that I have on what I'm talking about, I believe definitely draws people to working with me. And then they just are able to create even more certainty as they go along.
It's also making me think there's a connection between narcissists and the symptoms, the mind-body
Totally.
symptoms, because the symptoms are really, they're always trying to keep you off balance. They're trying to keep you
Absolutely.
afraid. They're trying to keep you confused. There's actually a lot of gaslighting to them too. They're like,
Yep.
oh, maybe you hurt yourself in this way.
Hmm.
So I'm starting
So
to think
true.
the symptoms are narcissists.
Absolutely. TMS is a narcissist.
At least that part of it certainly is.
Yep.
So I just think that's a really interesting point, and one that we can then learn from each other on. Because I think it is good to think of, just from my angle, good to think of the symptoms as really trying to gaslight.
Hmm.
I wondered, though, if you could clarify how you see this in terms of actual narcissists and the gaslighting. This is a complicated question. I think it actually has two different potential answers, but how conscious are they? How conscious are they of what they're doing?
They know exactly what they're doing. And a lot of people might disagree with that. But if somebody knows how to behave in public and how to be nice to people in public, and then behind closed doors, they're a complete monster, they know exactly what they're doing.
I think this is just an important distinction, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because I often got sucked back in by the idea that they probably are doing this kind of unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's part of the slippery slope.
Yes.
Does that
Yeah.
ring true to you?
Absolutely. A lot of people believe that it's unconscious, and then they start feeling sorry for them. And then the focus goes on like pleasing the narcissist and making them feel better and feeling sorry for them. And then you're giving them supply. And that's another way that they gaslight you as well. So, you have to really understand that they are doing it 100% on purpose. And if you don't believe it, observe, right? Take a look at what's going on.
I just wanted to say this was a moment right here. I was legitimately asking that question. I was like, I don't know what to think about that. And first of all, your certainty is much appreciated. It's clarifying for me, but it also made me realize, see, that's how quickly doubt can come in. I was like, well, maybe they don't really know. They're still to blame for it as far as I'm concerned. But I like the idea that, no, we can be more certain. People know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And
shouldn't
if
let
they're
them off the hook
blacking
with
out
that.
in a trance state, like there's doctors for that,
Right.
Like if they go into a complete blackout mode and then that's when they're abusive, like that's a problem that like I mean, there's got to be some kind of medical intervention for that kind of stuff, but that just goes to show you exactly that they know.
Yeah, and people, I think narcissists especially, they hide behind all kinds of things. They
Oh,
can
yeah.
hide behind the idea that there is an unconscious. Oh, I just didn't know. And they'll even say it.
Totally.
They'll say, oh, I didn't know. How was I supposed to know?
Mm-hmm.
That's gaslighting and just making you
Exactly.
doubt yourself. I saw a video that you did on Instagram. It was a while back, but it was about the fact that you cannot get closure with a narcissist. It was another one that I really loved.
Mhm.
I just wondered if you could talk about that, because I think when we get to certainty and when we're looking for peace, this is a part of what we need to do. There's certain things we have to give up.
Yeah.
I wondered if you could speak to that.
Totally. So yeah, closure is, you have to give up on the idea of closure if you want to heal from narcissistic abuse or even move forward or come to terms with things, because the narcissist is not going to give you any kind of closure. And it's important to understand that when you've left a narcissistically abusive situation, you want closure. It's human nature to want closure. It's normal to want closure. When something horrible happens, we want some form of closure so that, we can take the next step. And a lot of people search for this with their narcissistic abuser. So maybe they'll ask the narcissist straight up for closure. And that turns into a conversation about how everything was the survivor's fault and they're in the wrong. And, just like it's just an invitation for more gaslighting and more abuse to happen. And, they might dangle closure as a carrot and, try and get supply from you that way and say like, oh yeah, well, we're gonna meet up tonight and we're gonna have that conversation for closure. And then they ditch you last minute, they cancel last minute, or it just turns into that stupid conversation that solves absolutely nothing and makes you feel even worse about yourself. And you can, be walking into that conversation with certainty, but when they start talking, they will start using those manipulation tactics to try and make you doubt yourself. So it's completely like a pointless thing to do, to even try and attempt to get closure from this person. The longer that you stay stuck in this idea that closure is going to even solve anything for you, the longer you're going to stay stuck. And it's important to create that closure for yourself. And that will start with educating yourself on who you're dealing with and understanding the cycle of abuse, and just understanding that this was done on purpose. This person bamboozled you and manipulated you on purpose, and they calculated exactly how they were going to do it. They knew what your vulnerabilities were. They knew exactly how to exploit them. And that, doing that research is going to be very helpful. Of course, put a timer on it so you're not down a rabbit hole for months on end, because that's not constructive at all. But just coming to terms with that and accepting the truth is going to be extremely important. And then, doing some emotional work. How do you feel about the fact that you are not going to receive the closure you're looking for in a nice, neat little box with a bow on it? And you have to create that closure for yourself. How does that make you feel? And process that, because that's going to be really helpful as well.
It's funny. It feels like there's overlap between narcissists and these mind-body symptoms, at least the doubt aspect of things, because I say to people all the time, stop trying to get to a place where there will be no doubt. That's never going to happen.
Exactly.
You have to treat doubt like it's going to continue being the same jerk that it always was. And you can get closure by being like, I'm not going to listen to it anymore.
Right.
And the certainty is the thing that gets it done for me. Yeah. So now I wanted to ask you about basically I think boundaries are what's needed.
Absolutely.
And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that. I also understand you have like a 12-week training course, I think, on this. Do I have that right?
Yes and no. So I have a 12-week group coaching program, and then I have a 4-week, or it's now a course. It's a 4-module boundary boot camp.
Okay, got it. All right. So tell me a little bit about it. What do people need to do to put the boundaries in place?
For sure. So first of all, knowing what your boundaries are and why you need them. And that's covered in module 1 of the boot camp. And then, understanding how a narcissist's mind works is going to be very important as well. Doing the emotional work in order to wrap your head around setting the boundaries, because there's so much nervousness that goes into it. And, those repressed emotions, like with TMS, they're going to sabotage your pain healing, and they're also going to sabotage your boundary setting. There's so many overlaps with, the mind-body connection and setting boundaries and dealing with narcissistic abuse and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely the emotional work is going to be the most important thing that's going to help you to set those boundaries. And then of course, keeping those boundaries, which is going to, involve more emotional work as well, because there's going to be those temptations to break the boundaries, and then just discovering what is the emotion within me that is making me want to break this boundary, right? Is it guilt? Because that's a big one. Guilt is huge. A lot of the times we feel so guilty after setting a boundary because, you set it with the narcissist, and then they start telling you what a horrible person you are and how could you do this to me, and you've hurt me so badly. So of course you're going to feel guilty because you're a human who has empathy. So exploring that guilt and realizing that just because I feel guilty, it doesn't mean I am guilty. It's just this person's projecting onto me and they're wanting me to feel guilty so that I will be easier to control. Is, I can say that logically it makes sense, but when you're in it and you haven't processed the emotion, that's where all of that doubt is going to come back. So I can't stress how important it is to do the inner work.
Yeah, and I'll just put in a plug for another type of thing like that, but I think it's all related to the psychology of things. I was thinking that a lot of times I find narcissists swoop in my life at moments where I'm vulnerable,
100%.
where I'm like, I'm upset about something, or I'm not feeling as good about myself. So you really want to know your vulnerability, and you need to know how to recognize them. So There's lots more we could discuss about this, but I wanted to thank you for coming on to talk about this.
Thanks for having me.
It's such an important issue. People's lives are often getting ruined by people like this, and we can all stop it once we learn to recognize the signs. So, Adriana, I really, really want to thank you for taking the time with me, and I look forward to continuing to connect. We're in, very close related fields, and obviously we got into them for the same reason, so
of course.
We'll keep up. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
You too. Well, it was certainly a pleasure connecting with Adriana on any number of levels. The fact that she had chronic pain before she got into working with a narcissist, and also that tremendous overlap that we were finding between doubt symptoms and narcissists. They are designed to throw you off balance. They're designed to capitalize on your fear. They're designed to keep you in confusion. I was really blown away by that, and I think it's a very important point so that we can use the information that Adriana brings and our understanding of how to be certain to keep boundaries in place with narcissists to do the same thing with doubt. Fascinating discussion. I'm so glad she came on to talk with me. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below and we'll get back to you personally.